Wow, I'm really tired of these boring Tour de France stages. Nothing going on. Wait, stage 11, stage 12. That's not what happened. So here we are, Between the Wheels podcast, episode 257. We're going to recap stage 11, which I skipped yesterday because life happens, get busy, and then stage 12. So yesterday, big one we have going on, and today, another big one. Surprises all around. All right, everybody. What did you expect? Did you expect Pogacar? What? We're going to spoil it. If you watched any of this, you paid attention. Big. Look, we talked about it. The race on the Grand Don. By the way, Grand Don, it's another one they do. And then this is the Grand On. And I confused those. But I talked about it. And when I've said, oh, they go over this, I think it was in the preview, one of the early shows I was talking about it. But we did get it right for yesterday. 1986 was the only time they've gone up there. And that's when the last day that Bernardino, he lost a bunch of minutes and Greg LeMond took the yellow jersey. And the very next day, they do Alpe d'Huez from Briançon to Alpe d'Huez. Almost, I think it's the exact same route because they went over the Galibier and the Croix de Four and then Alpe d'Huez, which is what we had today. And it's today is the 14th of July. It's Bastille Day. So it's your French Independence Day. It's a big deal out there. So you got crazy fans, crazy everybody. So why don't we start and we'll just recap. Damn, this is why I should have done it yesterday, but we'll recap what happened yesterday. It's almost too difficult to even explain to everybody, but we will do our best to do it. And then we can talk about why we actually think this happened, which is the downfall of Pogacar. Or is it? I don't know. Okay, so we're going to tip our way through. So it started out the day. They do a little recap on the GCN thing, the video here, and then they'll do a little bit of yesterday. But it starts out here. You can see Wout and Mathieu van der Poel. It was from kilometer zero. So Jumbo took this thing off. They had a plan to the start, and I just want to say I think Wout van Aert is an amazing rider, and and by the way, you see him turning into an amazing teammate here the next 2 days, partly because he's got this ability to he's different than Dylan Groenewegen, as an example, who was on their team, was a pretty good sprinter, but he can go and he can cap and get some stage wins and some glory on the first week of the tour. Then it's easy for him to just turn over and he can actually go uphill. So he's an amazing rider for what he's able to do, and you can see that again today, even into Alpe d'Huez, still being up there on over all the climbs. But from kilometer zero, he had it ready to go, and he and Mathieu van der Poel took off, and then van der Poel, they went up this really cool climb with some twistiness. So they're going to do a little recap here. And this is the day before the stage 10. Magnus Cort gets the win. So EF is off there. But here is the key, and we're going to see if this makes much of a difference, which is Pogacar going for every single, and we talked about this, that he's nickel and diming everybody, but that could come back to haunt him. So we'll find out I don't know if we'll ever really find out what took place, why this was the problem. But he was doing this on stage 10. He had a pretty good advantage going into everybody. Jonas, he had 39 seconds over Thomas, a minute 17. Yates, Godot, those guys. Pidcock down there, 146. And Wilson Palace. Okay, so that was Albertville to La Col du. They go over the Galibier, the Telegraph, this La Quête de Montvernay. That was pretty cool. It's got a bunch of switchbacks, kind of like Alpe d'Huez, 151.7 kilometers. And then obviously this Col du Grand On, Serre Chevalier. Very interesting climb. It was all exposed. It's like 20K. It's pretty nasty. So here's kilometer zero, literally kilometer zero, Wout going up the road. He gets a few sprint points again. He's just killing everybody in that. Other riders end up coming up to it, and they go over the Telegraph. And you can see right here, there's a little gap. I think Laporte was on the front perhaps, and Roglic takes a shot. He takes a shot over the top of this, and they start sprinting down around the back. So let's take a look here. Let's go back here. Okay, so the Telegraph, and you got just a teeny little respite there, and then it goes all the way up to Galibier, which is a long climb. So there's not much on the downhill, and he decides he's going to just hit it out. So that's exactly what happens. He starts attacking on the downhill. Pogacar comes up with him, and it starts spreading. Now this is like 60, inside 70K to go. And we've got the Galibier to do and the Grand on, and it is on. And what happens is, since Pogacar is Roglic, I mean, since Roglic actually has a pedigree, and he's won multiple Vueltas, he's won multiple stage wins, and Pogacar actually knows how good he is. You don't let him necessarily get any leash. And so what happens is he's attacking, and look, you can look back and say Pogacar should have just maybe let him go, but Pogacar jumps on his wheel every time, and then boom, Jonas hits, and then Pogacar hits, and they just keep going back. And at some point, Pogacar, Roglic hits, and then Pogacar actually decides to just kind of go on his own, and he starts dropping people. So this is another amazing thing that you got to look in this day. It's like a washing machine of guys getting kicked out the back, and a lot of times you see they're spit out the back and they're gone for good. But G. Thomas keeps clawing his way back in there. A bunch of these riders end up clawing their way back and back and back. They go over the Galibier, and here's another one. Roglic attacking when they have the main group all back together. Then he gets spit off on the Galibier. Warren Barguil is up in the break, and he ends up taking off. And then you have here's Pogacar going up on the Galibier, doing a lot of work. I don't know that it was necessary. His team was gone, and then he just decides to keep doing a bunch of work. Warren Barguil, who, I'll tell a quick story here, evidently is not a great guy. Ben O'Connor yelled at him the other day. The issues with Geraint Thomas's glasses. Evidently, Barguil hit him and broke them, and so he was out of his glasses for a while. But Wout is up ahead in the break, and he comes back, and Pogacar had been spit out on the Roglic had been spit out on the Galibier, as had Sepp Kuss. There was Kreuzick was still around there. Jonas was up there with Pogacar, and so Wout comes back, and then I think that's about a minute and a half that Roglic is behind the yellow jersey, and Wout sits up, waits, and goes all the way back and collects Roglic. Now, he brings him up, which he also brings up Gaudu, Vlasov, Pidcock. He also brings up Rafa Majka, which to me, this might have been the only questionable little scenario for the Jumbo team that day of doing it, like going all the way back, bringing him up, because at one point, Jumbo was completely dominating and outnumbering Pogacar. But now you brought up Majka, and then you see in the end here, well, they get back, they start going up the Granon, and Roglic hits the front like a solid teammate. 10K here. He's actually, that's Barguil, so they're back a little bit of ways. But he hits the front. He starts going pretty hard. And then you have Kreuzick. Sepp Kuss makes a little bit of a help, but not much. And then it's Rafa Majka on the front. But he's not pushing so hard that he is killing everybody. Nairo spits out, somewhere down at the bottom. He decides to attack. Then you had, and it's kind of odd because his teammates up the Warren Barguil, Roman Bardet takes off, and I think you could just kind of tell from behind. Rafa Majka kind of increases the pace, but when he's doing that, he's actually just tethering himself a little bit, untethering, I guess, to Pogacar. You could tell, and maybe that's when Jonas decides to just take off. So Jonas takes off, and he's in pursuit of Nairo. He's in pursuit of Majka and a few other guys up the road. And I think Geschke maybe had been up there. I'm not sure if they had collected him at any point. And at 4K to go, Nairo overtakes his teammate Warren Barguil, who was kind of pedaling knee-knocking squares. Jonas just continues on, and in the end, Jonas Vingegaard wins the stage and puts some serious time into everybody. He looked pretty solid. You had Nairo coming in here. We'll get to the times here, but 112 back was Roman Bardet, so he looked pretty good. Geraint Thomas, once again, just fighting all day long, was able to hold on, but 252 back, Pogacar looked pretty dead. He was getting people just walking past him on the climb. As far as other riders like Yates, as an example, Vingegaard over Quintana 59 seconds, Roman Bardet, Geraint Thomas 134, Gaudu, Yates, Pogacar, Lutsenko, Kreuzick, Barguil. So we'll walk through some of the riders and on the GC and see how everyone did. Kind of the breakdown as we always do. Vingegaard is on the phone with his lady. call them partners over there. I think in America we call them baby mamas. So that's what he had going there. So here's the GC going after Vinigo in first, Bardet in second, 216 back, Pogacar 222, just very closely. Geraint Thomas 226, Quintana moved up 237. Yates, Gadu, Vlasov, Lutsenko, Kreuzwick. Big loser on the day was Nielsen Palace. Ended up losing a bunch of time, but I don't know if we expected much other than that from him as far as GC stuff. And we'll take a look kind of on today, see how that went. Let's take a look here. Pro cycling stats. Okay. I think we want to go to that's spoiling it here. So how about Tour de France? Yesterday's stage. Vinigo. We saw that. But I just want to break down kind of some teams and some riders. We'll walk through all our teams. Let's do the Americans first. So you had Sepkus. He's the only one that kind of stayed up there. He came across the line with Roglic, who turned himself into quite the teammate. Brandon McNulty did not help. He I don't know if it was a suffer day or what, but I think it was for everybody. But maybe it was the fact that the team was on the front trying to control early on. And, this goes back to just the day before, you got Roglic, Pogacar, I'm sorry, sprinting near the end, making sure that he's in yellow and then putting his team kind of under pressure. Maybe it would have been better to have Kamna and some of those other, Bora doing some work today. McNulty, 24, Dombrowski, 25, Paulus, 26 minutes back at 36, Matteo Jorgensen, who had been in the break the day before, 27, Quinn Simmons losing 30, but staying in there. Okay, so on GC, you can see here, Sepkus moved up 9 places, but he's not really in there for the GC battle. Paulus dropped 9 places all the way down to 20th. Okay, so let's walk through the stage here, and we're going to do our thing where we just walk through each team so you can see how the leaders are doing. Youngles had kind of moved up from his win a few days earlier, but he ended up losing 13 minutes. So what it is for them. Alpecin, the Koenig, they didn't really have any GC hopes. Lutsenko for Astana, he lost 338. So he actually moved. He's in eighth on the day as far as the GC goes. He moves up 8 places, and that's pretty solid for him. B&B, no one really there. Bahrain, they're losing out. Fred Wright, Dylan Toynes, who's Damiano Caruso was kind of their GC hope, but he's not really in it anymore. Let me see. Vlasov, he ends up losing 440, moves up though 6 places to 8th place on GC. Schachman's down. Conrad Kamna, he went all the way down. He there wasn't a chance for that. Kofidis has Geska up there, but he's not really in the overall. EF, Nielsen Palace, Rigoberto Urán is out of it. Palace dropped to the 20th. Groupama, David Gadu only loses 204. He ended up coming past. So he moved up down a spot. Actually, he's in 7th place, 313 out. Still looking fairly good, but we'll see how that goes today. Ineos, Geraint Thomas ends up with a solid ride, just being consistent. He didn't go after all the little moves. I mean, he went with them, but he didn't try to jump on them because he can't do that quick back and forth like Pogacar, Roglic, and Jonas were doing. Yates, though, also comes past Pogacar in the finish there. And Pidcock ended up losing a little bit more time, down 9 minutes on the day. He drops 3 places to 3rd. Keep that in mind. Yates down 1 to 6th place, 306 back, 226. So they still have somewhat of a fighting chance. And look, if you remember back when I was talking about when they had Danny Martinez still kind of in the mix, and you're like, hey, their idea is to keep these guys close. So when they attack, you've got to put pressure on the teams. And that was the important part for Roglic, still being in the mix just enough. And once again, having the pedigree that he does have where you have to actually watch him. He could go from a long ways out. He's done that before. So Pogacar was without much of a team at that point. He needed to follow those moves, and those moves drove him down, chipped away at him, but he had also been chipping away at himself, I believe. And I don't know if there might have been something else in the mix, but I think the biggest problem that he had was they're going 1-2, 1-2, and he's going after each one, and then he's following, and then he's attacking. He said he felt great over the Galibier, but obviously something happened and wore him down. So you got Ineos, Intermarché, Louis Benches. He went up 3 places, but he lost. Well, that's GC. He lost 12 minutes on the day. Israel, no one. Chris Froome, 27 minutes. Keep that in mind. And Mike Woods been a disappointment. Mike Woods, 27 minutes. Haven't really seen him do much at all. Obviously, Vinigo won. Koreiswick, Sepp, Roglic, Tish Benoot. Tish Benoot was kind of lit that thing off as well. Many times there for the guys, Jonas and Roglic. He's done an amazing. Everybody on that team has been very impressive. Lotto, they're just trying to get Caleb Ewan to the finish. Enric Mas, he ends up having a not so good day. He 8 minutes back, so he ended up getting dropped a little too early. As far as GC goes, he went down 1 place, but he's still 9 minutes overall. So kind of a wonky for him. Quick Step, not in the GC talk. Nairo moves his way up. He's now 5th place, 237. Once again, this is stage 11. We'll talk about stage 12. Bike Exchange, Nick Schultz is their best bet there. DSM, Romain Bardet said he came just for stage shots, and he's in the GC mix. Okay, Total Energies, not really caring there. Trek, not really caring there either because they don't really have anybody. And then UAE, we saw that. Pogacar, Rafa Micah, Mike and Brandon McNulty. A little bit of a tougher day for him yesterday. Okay, so now we are in the midst of stage 12. Okay, that's happened this morning. I enjoyed it. I don't think that let's see. Oh, we'll do the last K here. So there gets a breakaway early in the day, and Nelson. And by the way, this breakaway, let's see. This is the last kilometer. That's fine. Take a look, see if we can find the maybe we have to go over the preview on this one. Briançon to Alpe d'Huez. Do we know much about those? Alpe d'Huez, it's been there many times. 30 years ago today, or not today, but 30 years ago, from the 1992, first American got their win up there. It was Andy Hampsten. I think he was riding from Motorola at the time. He gets in a break. He'd been having quite a good day. I think that one ended on Sestriere like the day before. I think he was like 4th or so. He got in the move there. He did a great job. He's doing well through the Alps. Comes into Alpe d'Huez, gets in the early in a move there, gets up the road, and dumps everybody off and ends up holding off for the win. Evidently, he punched some kid on the way up too because the kid got in his way. And you see the crowds today were a little overzealous. But someone mentioned it about him, like, "Hey, why are you hitting this kid?" And he's like, "Well, you don't teach them early, they'll never learn." Probably correct. Let's just take a look. And these are the results, but I wanted to take a look at so if you look back in 1986, we talked about this before, and maybe I should bring the video up here, but it's the exact same route. The Col de Glebier, they go up a little different side from Briançon, and then they go up the Col de Croix de Feu, and then the Alpe d'Huez. Okay, pretty nasty and big climbs. So this first one here started out early. You had let's see if they could do the live stats here. Give us an idea of what happened early on. I might have to go way back. Let's see if we can find out where the break is. They're not showing us. Well, I'll tell you who's in it. After they spit out over the Quarter Fur, it ends up with Giulio Ciccone, Nilson Powless, Louis Meintjes, Chris Froome, and Thomas Pidcock. And what's important about that is you look at those riders. Pidcock, he's an Olympic champion on the mountain bike. Okay, he's pretty solid there. He's won some other big races. Chris Froome, 4-time Tour de France winner the 2019 Giro. Louis Meintjes, he's always a perennial top 10. And Nilson Powless won San Sebastian, almost in the yellow jersey. Giulio Ciccone won the yellow jersey a few years ago when they finished on Planche de Belfi. He was second to Dylan Teuns and then wore the jersey for a day. He's won, I think, 3 stages of the Giro. He's also won the King of the Mountains for the Giro. So this was a pretty heady group. They ended up, see the back in here of the Cours de Four, they had like 6 or so minutes, but down the valley, Jumbo was really drilling it pretty good. This long kind of ups and downs. Chris Froome looked like he was kind of hurting. So was Nilsson. They just didn't look the best to me. Going down the mountain was the best looking. It was Pidcock. He was out of control, super fast. Coming to Alpe d'Huez, they have about excuse me, have about a 5-6 minute lead, I think, there. And they go ahead and hit out Pidcock, the first guy that came off the group. Well, Nilson Powless does. Chris Froome does a little bit, and you have kind of a move. Oh, Ciccone comes off at some point as well, and you have Thomas Pidcock taken off. Lou Menches just holds him in a little bit. He actually said he would prefer to have Pidcock be a little bit further ahead of him. He didn't want to catch him because he's like, then you start doing the cat and mouse things. And I figured this was the best way for us to both stay away. He's like, but then at some point he goes, the elastic broke and I just couldn't really hold on to that anymore. So there you go. So as it turns out, Thomas Pidcock ends up with the win. He ends up staying away. Menches comes in about, I want to say a minute or so later. Chris Froome had been holding on there as well. He ends up getting about a minute 30 back. And then Menches and Chris Froome, then Nilsson Palace. And then right after Nilsson, it was the group of the yellow jersey. So what you really had there, and Alpe d'Huez is great, but this is nothing like yesterday. Yesterday was the day where we had full blown everything that happened. Maybe we'll try to walk through. Let's do this. Let's go to 1K to go. We'll try not to get blasted off of YouTube here. So 1K to go. It's the last K for the Jonas and Pogacar. Now, what I saw with Pogacar was he decided he's going to attack. Now, the team of Jumbo had whittled everything down. People were just flying off, and it's just the pace being set. Roglic comes onto the front. What a teammate, does a great thing. Look, this is the kind of the concerns you have with some of this is when you have the multi-prong, is there going to be this conflict that you've seen with Movistar and some of these other teams, or maybe even Sky back in the day with Froome and Wiggins, and their wives are going at it on Twitter. This is why I think Jumbo is the way they are, because you saw Roglic yesterday. I don't know if he had in his mind that he wasn't going to be able to do it, but he kept coming and hitting, and it was so important that he did because, once again, we talked about that. Pogacar had no choice but to try to follow, and he wasn't quite able to do so in the end. But Roglic ends up losing another time. He comes on the front here today, and he's not the last domestique that you might think he would be for Jonas. He's actually before Sepp Kuss. Sepp Kuss is the last one in the last 5Ks, drilling it down, bringing the gap down further and further. And then you'd see Pogacar, and this is why I don't think he's fully recovered. He ends up attacking like 3 or so K to go. Jonas easily gets on his wheel, sits on there for a little bit, and then Pogacar sits up, allows Geraint Thomas, Sepp Kuss, and I think Enric Mas, someone else there, because Bardet gets kind of spit out a little bit, Nairo gets kind of spit out a little bit, and so then you start to see this, and once again, these Pogacar then attacks again. Jonas easily gets on his wheel, and he sits up. So you typically would see Pogacar attack and then just drill to the end of the stage, just doing everything he can and maybe continuously attacking, but that's not what happened here. So at some point he had attacked, and then he just kind of sits there, and then Jonas ends up kind of coming up to his wheel, and you can tell it's just not the same. It's not the same. Geraint Thomas brings them back. And then when Thomas gets up there, you're going to see just a little bit behind here with 1K to go. Sepp Kuss gets drugged back up to the front. Thomas Pidcock, however, he comes across for the win. There's Jonas being brought up by Enric Mas. Pidcock for the win. Good for him. Youngest, I think, rider to win on Alpe d'Huez, another British rider. Jonas in there. Menkes comes across. Sepp Kuss comes back up to the front and pulls super, super good. He was very impressive today. And Louis Menkes, and they didn't really show the rest of them in there. So who am I impressed by? Well, let's just go to the results. And I'm impressed by a lot of people. Thomas Pidcock wins 48 seconds over Menkes. Chris Froome, 206. Nilsson Palace, 229. And then he holds off just about a minute over Pogacar, Vinigo, Thomas, Enric Mas, and Sepp Kuss, dropping a little bit with Ciccone, Bardet, Yates, Gaudu, Quintana, Kreuzwick, Lutsenko, and Jungles. I'm impressed by a few people here. One, this may sound stupid, that Brian Zimney chimed in here. Too hot for Pog? He said he doesn't like the heat. Yeah, he doesn't like the heat, but I don't think that's, I mean, maybe that's why it's 3 minutes. I mean, he's raced in the heat before, so I don't think you lose. I don't know. Maybe the heat caused him. I think maybe all the action and maybe the heat combine of everything maybe didn't fuel just quite right because of the heat, being uncomfortable, having all these attacks going on. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think, once again, I don't think he recovered fully. As you can see today, he just wasn't quite on form. Kurt Mills seems to think that that's just what happens when you get COVID. I don't know that he has it, but Chris Froome, though, I was impressed with him, and you wouldn't normally say that, losing 2 minutes there, but he held off the field. He only lost 2 minutes to Pidcock. He was able to go over all the climbs. He stayed with the group. It was an impressive little group that they had going. I was also impressed with Nilsson Palace being able to also, after a big loss there, it probably out a little bit out of his reach what he's doing with GC. But it's great to see him come back. I mean, who's done what for EF? Obviously, Magnus Cort has done everything for EF. Nilsson's been up there. This is his fourth place, I want to say, right? Wasn't he fourth or so on the day in the cobbles? So another impression. He's also very, very close on the GC. So I've been impressed with him coming back on this. I don't know that, Alberto Bettiol, I guess, was up there a little bit for EF. Otherwise, it's really just been he and Magnus. And I'm sure the team is doing work for both of them. So that's good, though. And Sepp Kuss coming into the finish, just dancing on the pedals, riding off Adam Yates, riding off who else was it? Ciccone. Oh, no, Ciccone, they caught at the end. Riding off Gaudu, Bardet, Quintana, Kreuzer. I mean, it was an impressive day for our man from Durango. So good for him. Let's walk through the teams once again. Bob Jungels, 6 minutes down. Remember, 3 minutes or so to the stage. We don't really care off of Pidcock necessarily. But I don't think, Jungels, he moved one up to 16th place. Is that really what he's going for? Maybe. Alpecin, once again, we don't care. Astana, Lutsenko ends up 5:29, so he has a pretty good day. He actually moves down 2, though, overall in the GC. B&B, we're not concerned. Bahrain, Luis Leon Sanchez, 10 minutes. Bora, Vlasov loses 6, so about 3 or so there to the GC group. Cofidis, EF, Nilsson Palace gets himself up there. He ends up moving up on GC 2 places to 18th, solid in the top 20. David Gaudu loses a little bit, 4th, 17. So he's one of the, I would say, big losers, but he's one of the more losers. Ineos, great day. Pidcock in first. Geraint Thomas coming in with the main group. And Adam Yates just losing a handful of seconds there. So as far as GC goes, they're on 3, 5, and 8. So they still, this is what happens with Pidcock coming back kind of into the picture now. You do another big day like he did today. They've got to actually worry about that kind of stuff. Louis Meintjes, great day for him. Moves up the saddle a little bit. Second on the day, but on GC, he's 13th. Israel, this was good for Froome, but, overall, they don't really have much going on. Jumbo, great day for them still. Vinigo, Sepp Kuss, staying up there. Nothing changes. Sepp actually moves up a few places to 17th from 18th. Roglic down a spot, 20 minutes plus for both of them, and Kreuzwick at 14, but they don't care. It's all in for Vinigo. Lotto, nothing there. Movistar, Enric Mas, actually a solid day for him. Moves up 1, 9:32, so a little bit of a recovery. It's interesting to see which guys go well and which guys don't. So Nairo, who had a great day yesterday, ends up losing a little bit today. And drops down 1 on GC 3:58, but he's still within shooting distance. You never know what's going to happen here. Team Bike Exchange, nothing. Look at them. DSM, Roman Bardet drops a little bit, 3:42, but he was just close enough, so he drops 1 spot to 4th at 2:35 on GC. Total Energies, don't really care. UAE, Pogacar doesn't lose any time, but he moves up a spot. Rafa Michael, 31 minutes out overall. Don't really care there, but he was not too far. Brandon McNulty loses 27 minutes today, so he gets dropped early. I think he got dropped on the Croix de Friere, so who knows? Who knows what he's up to? Okay, what do we got going tomorrow? Bourgousson to Saint-Étienne. This is usually kind of like a transition type thing a day, I think. But you got some climbs in there, so this is definitely a day for the breakaway. You think of Bauke Mollema type, Wout, maybe Wout, maybe Magnus. I don't know who would even pick anymore on this one. So this is your Friday. What's today? Is it Thursday? I think so. That's your Friday stage. Saint-Étienne to Mendes. This one's going to be rough because this is the plateau up there to the airfield on the top. And this is some sticky roads. This is going to be nasty. This could be a leg breaker you can see some GC crap going on here. Then Sunday, you've got not as big. I'm a little disappointed in the weekend stuff, right? Trying to watch this today, and I actually got called into court. It was like an emergency hearing that I'm not definitely wasn't dressed for, but I did it on Zoom, so we're all good. But I would prefer to watch the whole race instead. Carcassonne, and then you're gonna have a rest day. Then you're gonna start hitting the Pyrenees. But let's see, do we have? Here we go. Perisord. That's what, Tuesday or Wednesday, and Hautacombe, another solid one. 19. Your sprint day maybe for Caleb Ewan if he could get through, and then you have your time trial. Oof, rough. Okay, well, anyway, tour's been upended, but is it over? Is Vinigo now just, honestly, I hope, this is the crazy stuff, because I don't really care either way, but I didn't want to just see a runaway tour either. So I wish Pogacar hadn't lost as much time as he did, because I want to see a battle, right? They don't have the team. UAE does not have the team Jumbo did. And you can see that today. Jumbo, guys left at the end. Brandon McNulty getting shelled out there early. They only had Ralph and Michael, and Pogacar just has not recovered. I mean, that's to me apparent. He's able to kick, but he's not quite the guy he was. So I would like to see him recover a little bit more so that we can start to have this battle. And I'd like to see him take some time back from Jonas so this thing just gets a little bit better, where you're really putting the teams under pressure. And by the way, I'm like, tune in today. It's like 100 kilometers to go, 60 kilometers to go, and they're all together. I'm like, didn't we learn yesterday that it's more enjoyable for everybody if we like have some sort of massive attacks and this whole thing is shredded to pieces? Formigal, isn't that a race that they had? Wasn't that the time, super short race in the Vuelta? I'm trying to remember, 16, 17, somewhere around there. Chris Froome has the lead and everything ignites from right off the bat and he loses it. Let's see what Brian says here. Brian says he could take back a minute in the long TT if he clips away over the next week or so. He could get in range for the TT. But remember, last year, Jonas took, I want to say 30, 40 seconds out of Pogacar in the final TT, which was 30K. I don't know. So Jonas is not Michael Rasmussen or Bardet. He can time trial. So we've got the problem there with that. All right, everybody. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Friday? I think I just determined that. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll have another stage, maybe some more excitement. We'll try to do it right after the stage concludes like this so that I don't actually have the DCM coverage stuff. But there we go. Take care, everybody.